Hello, my name is Letitia Metherell with the Division of Public and Behavioral Health, Bureau of Healthcare Quality and Compliance. Today, this presentation is about the Nevada Automated Background Check System, also known as NABS. Today's goal is for all new providers to learn how to use the system. It is also a requirement for licensing purposes. In addition, any existing providers can use this in order to review the information or utilize it to train your employees on how to use NABS. This is a requirement for new providers as mentioned previously. Therefore, you will have to print the certificate and email it to the division in order to receive credit. It is very important when you email your certificate that you include the name of your facility as you put it on your application in order for us to be able to match up the certificate to where the application goes. You want to email it to pbhbgcheck@health.nv.gov, and the email is here for your easy reference. In addition, we recognize that you may want to ask questions during this presentation, so please write them down. When you are done with the course, you will be able to then email those questions to the PBH Check email, and we will respond with answers to your questions. It is also important that you complete and listen to the entire presentation before you print out your certificate. We do want to make sure that you get full credit and you don't have any delays in your license. For NABS users in general, and for existing users, and when you actually start using the system, we do have provider support available for you. You can obtain provider support on general NABS use by calling our office at 775-684-1030 and asking for the background check administrative assistant. Or you can email us at the PBH Check email. For fingerprint specific questions or questions about challenges and the results or the process, where somebody is, an applicant is in the process of their challenge, you can contact the Department of Public Safety's Fingerprint Support Unit at 775-684-6262. And these are for questions specific to the fingerprinting, actual fingerprinting process. We have also provided for your reference some links to websites, including one to the background check frequently asked questions website page, which will be a great resource for you to refer back to when you have questions. In addition, for those of you that are new owners applying for a license, you will need to complete the DPS Civil Applicant Account application as soon as you receive your license. This is a requirement and you must do it. You must obtain your DPS account number in order for us to enter you into NABS. As soon as you submit your DPS Civil Applicant Account application and that is processed, DPS will notify our office. Our office will then contact you, so you will be able to become a website administrator and go into NABS and start utilizing it to background check your employees. That link and resource to that link is also provided for you, so you can have easy access to it if you don't receive it from our office. We should be sending that to you as part of the licensing process, but if for some reason you don't have it, you can come back here and refer to this link. Please write it down, and as I mentioned, as soon as you get your license, please complete that application and submit it. I've repeated that several times because it is such an important part of the process. That concludes my introduction, so let's go ahead and get started and learn how to use NABS. Now we will learn how to use NABS. This is the login page. A few things to remember is you will receive your temporary password via email, but the username will not be included in that email. So make a note now. Your username is your email. You will use your email to go ahead and log in along with the temporary password that was provided to you. Of note here, this forgot password, if you forget your password, you can come to this login page and reset it. It's the quickest way to do it because you don't have to wait for us. Also, if you try to log in and the password fails 3 times, you lock yourself out. So I would suggest on the second attempt, if it doesn't work, that you just click the forgot password and just reset it, because there'll be a much faster way for you to get going than calling our office and waiting for a return call. In addition, if you need assistance at any time, you can reach us at this number here or at the email here. So then you click login and you'll have a temporary password, so it'll go through some steps that you'll walk through to set your regular password. Now we want to start with just a general overview of background checks. So we're going to scroll down to frequently asked questions, which will be a great resource for you in the future. We will cover a lot of information, so if you forget, you can just come back here and it will be a good review for you. These are all the providers that are required to do background checks in accordance with NRS Chapter 449. We won't go over them here. For those of you that are new applicants and your owners applying for your health facility license, you as an owner must be background checked before you can receive your health facility license. There will be instructions provided to you during your licensure application process. Make sure you follow those very carefully. For owners only, you will need to use NRS 449.122 and the DPS account number that we provide with the instructions. This is the only time you use it, during owner licensing. So please put that information aside and never use it again unless we direct you to do so. Otherwise, if you try to use this for employment purposes, when you start background checking your employees, or if you're an owner working as an employee and you're doing it as part of your 5-year, you really need to use the correct NRS, which we will go into shortly. So that's very important. Otherwise, it causes you problems. When background checking your employees, you must background check all employees within 10 days after hiring them. In addition, you background check your independent contractors and any staff working for you from a temporary employment service. So that's very important. We strongly suggest that you submit fingerprints electronically because there is a lower probability that the fingerprints will be rejected for poor quality, and you are likely to receive a much faster response. So we highly recommend electronic fingerprints, and here, as well as in NABS, you'll be able to get a list of those fingerprinting agencies. As I mentioned, once you receive your license, you'll submit your application to DPS, and you will background check all your employees under NRS 449.123. That's very important. And you will use your own DPS account number to background check employees. A note for administrators: unless the administrator happens to also be the owner, they won't get background checked until you background check your employees. So if the administrator is not the owner, when you come and get your license and do all your background checks, you'll background check all the employees, including the administrator, your temporary employment service staff, and each independent contractor. As we go through the system, you will learn that you can hire somebody who has been determined to be eligible
within the preceding 6 months. So if they go to another facility, they're background checked, they become eligible, they come to your facility, as long as it's within 6 months, you'll be able to hire them. And we will go through that scenario when we go through NABS. You must background check all your employees at least once every 5 years. And so for existing facilities, all new employees must be background checked, in addition to every employee that's coming for their 5-year through the use of NABS. You must use NABS to background check all employees, new employees, and the ones coming up for their 5-year. Of course, if you're a brand new facility, you're going to just be background checking everybody in NABS. There are 3 records that you must retain in your personnel file: proof of fingerprinting, the signed and dated civil applicant waiver form, and the clearance letter. And we will go into these in detail as we go through NABS. Undetermined background check results. We will go into that a little later as well. Okay. So I want to scroll down to the bottom of this page, because this bottom of the page will be a very good resource for you. Basically, it explains the different status in the system. So a not eligible means you may not employ the individual, and you must terminate the individual's employment immediately if the information is correct. But if the individual believes the information is not correct, he or she must be given the opportunity to have the information corrected before the individual is terminated. And we will go through the challenge process as we go through NABS. But just make a note here that if the information is correct, the individual really should not challenge, because it's not going to change everything. Challenges are only used if the information is not correct. So if you tell somebody you're not eligible and they say, hey, I was never convicted of that crime, that's when they would challenge. And eligible means you may employ the individual, and that the individual has no convictions in Nevada state or FBI criminal history records, which would disqualify the individual under NRS 449.174. So if you want to look up the disqualifying crimes, you can also come to this frequently asked questions section, and you will see the list here. So this top list up here are the lifetime disqualifiers, and the ones on the bottom here are the ones that they're disqualified only if they've been convicted of these within the past 7 years. And so there's the list if you're ever interested. Undetermined. The individual has been arrested for an offense which would disqualify the individual under NRS 449.174. The individual is convicted when the case is adjudicated. So basically what that means is that there's something on the record, but DPS does not have enough information in order to make a determination of whether the individual was convicted of the crime or not. And so it is it is a requirement that the individual must challenge the findings. Again, all undetermineds must challenge the findings. This is a requirement. They must do it. You must notify the individual of the undetermined results within 10 days, and then they must get all of the paperwork to DPS within 30 days in order for DPS to determine whether the individual is not eligible or eligible. Saying that, I strongly suggest that you have an internal policy and procedure that this be done within 48 hours. Sometimes paperwork that they need is out of state, or they run into other issues, and it causes difficulty for them to get the information, and they don't get it within the required time frames. So again, all undetermineds must challenge, and I strongly suggest you start that process within 48 hours, if at all possible. The other status you will see is fingerprints inspected first time. And this usually means that they were rejected for some technical problem, such as poor quality. It doesn't mean that they were convicted or anything like that. It's just that the actual fingerprints were rejected, like I said, usually due to poor quality. And here are the instructions if you see that status in NABS, fingerprints rejected. You will get an email from NABS notifying you that the fingerprints were rejected with the steps that you need to follow in order to submit fingerprints again. In this case, you must use manual fingerprints. You cannot submit electronically when they're rejected fingerprints. Again, you must use a manual card, and you can see the instructions here, and they're also outlined in the email you will receive from NABS. Now, if the fingerprints are rejected a second time, you will get a second email notification NABS, and you will also see that status in NABS. And in this case, you're going to need to send that paperwork, the email notification paperwork, along with a letter on your agency letterhead requesting a name check. So at this stage in the game, they would do a name check. So now let's go back to NABS and actually start using the system now that we understand a little bit about the terminology that we will be using. So now we're back on the home page, and we are going to go through 3 scenarios today. The first scenario is we have a new hire and they're in our office, and we're going to enter them into NABS, and they're going to show up as eligible. As I mentioned earlier, eligible means that they've been determined eligible within 6 months. Then we will go through and do a second hiring. We have a busy day today, and that person will come back as not eligible. And then we will have a third person who comes into our office and has never been entered into NABS. So in the first case, we will go ahead and enter the employee. So to enter any new employees, you go to Applications, Add New. You enter their Social Security number. And their last name. And you will notice the person shows up. And so up here, you'll see that they're eligible for employment, valid through, and you decide, great, I want to hire this person. So we will go through and we will be able to hire them without doing background checks again. And this is how. You click on Add New Application. And you will see here, fingerprints not required. That means that they were eligible and you just want to proceed through and you don't want to background check them again. Most facilities take this option. The second option is that you want to pay for fingerprints and you want to do a brand new check. There are a few facilities whose policy requires them to background check everybody regardless. So that option is there. Just be aware that when you choose one of these options, you're stuck with it. So please choose correctly. For example, if you choose pay for fingerprints, but you didn't want to pay for them, the only way to clear it through the system is to pay for fingerprints. So please choose carefully. Fingerprints not required, so we'll go ahead and pick this one so you can see what it looks like. At this point, please review all of their information, and if anything has changed, please update it. So then we'll go ahead and click Next. And this information, if anything is changed, go ahead and update it. Okay, so in this area here, if you only have one facility, only one will show up. But if you have multiple connected facilities, then they would also show up here, and you would have to pick the correct one for the person that they're working in. Every applicant who comes to get fingerprinted needs to have a civil applicant waiver form. And you still need to have that form signed, even if they're not getting fingerprinted, because it also is their form for their swearing that they haven't been convicted of any crimes and all of that. So that needs to be completed before you go through this process, regardless of whether they're being fingerprinted or not. And you also need to confirm that you've checked their government issued ID. Okay, so for the registry checks, you need to check each registry. And a lot of people say, hey, how come with the nursing disciplinary status, this person's not a nurse, how come I have to do it? Well, sometimes what happens is if somebody was, for example, a certified nursing assistant and they had disciplinary action, they may come back to work at a facility that does not require a certified nursing assistant because they lost their certificate. So this allows you to see if anybody has had any disciplinary actions on their license. So you go ahead and write their name in here if they're not licensed, or if they're licensed, you can put their license number there. And then you go display information and see, you could see here disciplinary action against nurse, no. So then you would just go back to the registry, and these tabs up here, I recommend you use these tabs to navigate. It makes it very easy to go back. So if they mark no here, then you go ahead and put cleared. If there was a yes there, you would have a choice between not cleared and information not disqualifying. So if you click not cleared on any of these registries and you click submit, it will close out the application and you're done. So not cleared means you do not want to hire the person. But let's say disciplinary action occurred 10 years ago, and you reviewed the case, you did thorough investigations, put your notes in here, and then you decided that you wanted to hire them. They've had no other problems, and you feel comfortable with that. You could put information not disqualifying, so it does identify that yes, you found something here, but you decide to hire them and you put notes. The OIG is required for some of your facility types, and it's required a check for all of these through the registry check. Auto match performed, no match is found. It does it automatically, but it doesn't search by social security number. So if you see a match, no match found here, you can be safe to put cleared because there's no name match. But if any name comes up here at all, then you need to go to the OIG registry. You need to put in their last name and first name and go through the process to confirm that it's actually the same person. And once you determine that they're cleared, you put it here, and if they were not cleared, you would put it there. So we'll put cleared. This is National Sex Offender Registry, and this one you put in the first and last name and just go through the search. And if it says 0 results found, then that means it's cleared. So you'd mark them as cleared. And if it found a name and you confirmed it was the correct person, you could put not cleared. And then this is a Nevada Sex Offender Registry where you click I agree and you continue until you get done, make your determination. One other status you'll find here is flagged for review. This is an optional status. It's used if you want, for example, a supervisor to review it. Once you submit it with flagged for review, it won't actually submit the application because it will require a supervisor to come review the application and have them submit it if they feel it's okay. And I'll show you how the supervisor would know that in the future if you decide to use that. But in this case, I'm going to say they were cleared for everything, and I'm going to go ahead and submit it. On this page, you'll notice that there is no fingerprint form because and I'll go over the fingerprint form so you'll know what that is a little later, but there's no fingerprint form because this person did not require any fingerprints. They'd been eligible for employment within the last 6 months and you just want to hire them. So you can come here and click on the final registry results and you'll be able to go ahead and print this, and this just tells you as your proof that you did all the registry results, including the OIG and what the status was. When you're done with this page, application submitted confirmation, you always have to get to this page, application submitted confirmation, for anything to be considered completed. If you don't get here, then it goes up here to not yet submitted, and anything in the not yet submitted area will either one, if this one was the type that required a background check, you would never get your background check back, or you would never get to the point where you would get this person into the available determination available area so you can hire them. So if you ever have any that are not yet submitted, you must go ahead and click that and finish that off. So in this case, I'm going to go to the determination available tab, and this is where all the determinations that are available show up. And I'm going to find that person and I'm going to hire them. It's very important that you keep this up to date. You can either hire them or you can close without hiring. If you decide not to hire them, just close without hiring. But if you want to hire them, you just click on the hire button and you put in their hire date and you click save, and it moves them to your roster. And so you can, moving them to your roster means that they come up here to your employees and they become a permanent person and they go onto your roster here. Keeping this roster up to date is required by law, so it's very important that you do that. Okay, so now we're going to go to our second scenario, which is adding somebody who is not eligible, to see what that looks like. So again, we're going to put in their social security number and their last name and do a search. And you'll notice that the person, oh, excuse me. So this person was somebody who, I made a mistake. This person was somebody who was in the system but requires a new application. And there are different reasons why somebody may require a new application. For example, somebody was eligible, but they were over 6 months since they've been background checked. They would show up as new application must be submitted. If it was one of the 7-year disqualifying crimes and it was 10 years that have passed, they are currently eligible again, but they need to be background checked. So when you see that, you just click on add new application. And you just go ahead and go through that same process that we went through until you get to the very end, and it will require fingerprints in this case. So we'll go ahead and do that so you can see what that looks like. The first thing we want to do is make sure that the first name, last name, social security number, and date of birth are correct. These are the most important things. You want to double, triple check these. This is so important because if these are wrong, it's going to cause you problems and take a lot of time to fix. So for example, with the social security number, if you put a wrong social security number and somebody else came with that actual social security number, didn't recognize the person because it'd say, hey, that person already exists in the social security number, and you can't put him in. It causes a lot of problems. If the date of birth is not correct and they go to the fingerprinting agency and provide the correct date of birth, it will error out of the system and you won't get background check. And so you won't get the background check results, and then you have to go figure out what's wrong and fix the date of birth and get everything resubmitted. So I know we're all very busy, but if you can really take your time to make sure these are right in the long run, it's going to save you a lot of time and effort. The other thing is that you must use a government issued ID to confirm everything. And I would have them use that exact same government ID when you send them to go get background checked, because if they use a different ID with different information for whatever reason and things don't match, it's going to cause a lot of problems. So use the government ID to enter the information and tell them to use that same ID when they go get fingerprinted. Then you go ahead and you make sure that all of the address information is correct. Oh, this is not correct. so I'm going to fix it. So go ahead and make sure everything is correct and go enter all of that. And then if they've had a prior name, you can add it here. If they've had any prior addresses, add them here. Prior addresses is important because in the next registry section that we go through, if you had, say, somebody who lived in California, the California registries would show up, so then you can check their registry. So you just click prior address and put that in there. It's pretty self-explanatory. And then the driver's license or any other issued ID that they provide to you can be chosen here. You can put in the issuing state, document number, and expiration date. Those aren't required. If you want to upload a document, you just click on upload here. So if you wanted to upload a copy of their driver's license, although it's not required, you may want to have everything in one electronic file. So that's acceptable. So you can go ahead and put a copy of their driver's license in here, and then we would just label this driver's license and click save, and then you would have a copy of their driver's license in here. And then we'll click next. And then you put where they're working, and if you're the owner of multiple facilities, so you're the same owner, and all those facilities have the same tax ID, you will be able to have them connected in NABS through the use of the same DPS account number. So that's something you can work out with DPS, but it does allow you to connect your facilities. Another important thing is, let's say, regardless of whether they're connected or not connected facilities, if you work, let's say, at 4 facilities and you're the background check person for those 4, and you have the same person, Apple, who wants to work at all those 4 facilities, you must enter each person into all 4 facilities. So you must enter that person, same person, into each different facility so that that person is on the roster of each facility. That's very important. The person has to be on the roster of each facility. Ideally, get them in within that 6 months period, and you know you'll always be safe if you don't want to do background checks again. So if I knew this person was going to be working at 3 of my facilities, I would just run them through 3 times while I have them, get them on the roster for each one, and then I know I would be good. And that's after you have a determination of eligible. So you need to get them into the system within 6 months of determination of eligible if you want them to be in all of your facilities, without having to pay for another background check. The facilities by DPS account number work a little differently because you're connected. You can share information, but we do get people who work at facilities that don't have the same DPS account number, and that's what I mean by not connected. And so you want to get them all in there within that 6-month time period. Again, you're confirming that in this case you've checked their ID and they have submitted their civil applicant waiver form, and you can upload the civil applicant waiver form here if you wish, and then click next. And then again, you would do your registry checks. And I'm going to pretend that I did them. I don't want to go through all that again with you. I think you've got the point by this time, so I'm going to mark them all cleared. And so you're aware that at any time that you can withdraw somebody, there's going to be a withdrawal button here. And if you want to save and close out before you get to the submission page because you get busy or distracted, you can. And once you save and close out, they come up here to the not yet submitted area, and you can come back and resume. But remember, until you get to that submitted page, you won't get fingerprint results back. And if you want to withdraw anytime, you just click withdraw. This request for child abuse registry check is optional. A lot of people think, well, how come, I would want to do this if I don't take care of children? Well, if somebody has been found of abusing children, you probably don't want them caring for your frail elderly either. So this is a great extra safety check. The first thing it asks you is to enter the individual's spouse information. This is very important. You need to enter the spouse information and each child that the person has, because what happens is for some reason people might use one of their family members' social security number. And the Division of Child and Family Services has found people in their registry by searching by the social security number of their what they've listed as their spouses and children, and come to realize it actually belongs to that person. So although this is obviously optional because the person may not be married and they may not have children, please do not just jump over this. If you want really good, accurate results, the best results possible, enter the spouse information and the information of the children. So you may consider adding some pre-paperwork to your hiring paper at, request this information so when you get to this page, you have it. And that's why it's so important for that civil applicant waiver form to be filled out as well, because it actually gives permission from the applicant to do this actual child abuse registry check, as well as the other registries that are in here. So you just go ahead and enter the information. You add the children if they have children. And obviously, you're going to make sure all the spelling and everything is correct, because these are all pretend people. My spelling is correct for this purpose. Okay, and so then you save it, and then you push check registry, and then you'll have this little box that says your registry request has been submitted, and so that way you know that it's been done. The results come back up here under applications, registry recheck and registry recheck log, and we'll go over that later, but that's where your results come back. The results are not automated. This goes to the Division of Child and Family Services, and they do a manual search and put the results in. So, you might not get the results for a few days, 3 days, maybe even a week. I would wait at least 2 weeks before contacting them if you don't see results here in the registry recheck area. Then you click submit. And you have a fingerprint form here. The fingerprint form is critical. The fingerprint form must be taken to the fingerprint agency. Must be. It is critical. In here you have the background check or the OCA number, and that is required to be on the card. And you have the reason fingerprinted, the ORI, and your DPS account number, all information that is required. So regardless of whether they're doing manual or electronic fingerprints, you have this go with the applicant, so this information can be put correctly on the fingerprint card. Fingerprints must be submitted within 10 days of hire, so you can put a date here for them if you wish to give them guidance. And then at the very end here, they're going to sign and date it. And here's proof of electronic fingerprint submission. So if you send them to get electronic fingerprints, you can have the fingerprinting agency fill this bottom part out and then have the applicant bring it back and put it in their personnel file. This TCN number is very useful because if something errors out or the fingerprints don't go through, this is the only way that people can really help you. So you can call the fingerprinting agency and say, hey, I haven't seen the fingerprints registered in NABS yet, but I have proof of fingerprinting, and give them the TCN number and they can help you figure out, why that happened. If it is a manual fingerprint card, you must keep a copy of the actual fingerprints in the file. In this case, the person had to be fingerprinted again and background checked, and so they go into the determination and process area, because the determination and process area is the area where all the applicants go that you're waiting for fingerprints to come back. So we haven't received fingerprints back. Now in the determination and the application determination available area, we get all of the individuals who've had results come back. And so it's very important to keep an eye on both of those so you are aware of their results. Okay. I am going to go ahead and click on the last name here. And you can get the person's actual applications by clicking on their last name or by searching them. Normally, you're just going to want to search for a person because that will take you right to their application profile. So if you have any questions about a person, you want to know where their fingerprint form is, you want to know where their clearance letter is, you've got through the application submission part, but you forgot to print the fingerprint form, all of their documents and everything are in this area right here. Okay, so here's their application. If you want to edit any of this information, they've had a name change or their address change, you just click edit here and you can change the information. To look at all their applications, you can go here. You can see in this case, this person had a not eligible result. And you go to their employment and it's going to record their employment. And in this case, you can see he's not employed. I never hired this person, so there's no employment record. If I hired them, then you'll see their status, whether they're permanent employee or provisional employee here. Documents tab is very, very important. So anytime you need anything, it's going to show up here. That's very important. You need the clearance letter, you need their fingerprint form, their registry recheck, anything at all, you go ahead and enter it there. Okay, so another thing that we will be going over is what happens with challenges. So we'll go over that in a little bit, but the challenge ending date letter comes here, and so all the forms are here. So here's a history too. If you need to find out what happened with an individual, then you can go ahead and look up here, you know, exactly all the steps that you've taken, what's happened, those things. The other thing that's important to note is that your username will show up here. So anybody can do research to find out everything you've done. So you want to make sure that you never share your password with anybody. That's very important because then somebody may say that you did something that you never did because the login is you. And also the other thing is this information is confidential, so only individuals that need to background check people should have access to the system. And so that's important. Whenever you're done with this using the system, you should log out of the system and close out of it so people can't access the system. So in the other scenario I was going to go over with you, and I'm just going to pretend now, is application add new. So let's say you click application add new. What would show up if this person was not eligible is their profile with their not eligible for employment here. So if you do application add new and the person just shows up like this, okay, not eligible for employment, in this case, you're not the one who sent them through the fingerprinting process. In this case, this was a scenario where the employee came in, you did application add new, and this profile came up, and you saw not eligible for employment. So in this case, the only way they could challenge is if they had a new background check. So if they said the information was not correct, to challenge this, you would click add new application, take it through the process, they would get their fingerprint form and go get fingerprinted. So that's not eligible for employment. Now we've gone through all the scenarios except for the last one, and that is when an individual comes into your facility and they have never been entered into NABS. And you can see it says the individual was found not in NABS. So you add new applicant, and then you go ahead and you enter all their information, and you click next, and you just go through that same process that we did previously until you get to the page where it says submitted in green on the top, confirmation submission, and you get your form and you give it to the employee. So it's very important. So you put the person in the system. If they require fingerprints, you give them the fingerprint form. The fingerprint form is taken to the fingerprint agency. The fingerprint agency fills out the bottom of the form and returns it back to you. You put it in the file. Now, at this point, we're just waiting for results. So you will get an email through NABS saying that there are results in the system. So you go ahead and go to Applications, Determination Available. And yes, we want to navigate away from this page. And then it takes you here, okay? So that person we just did, if they came back as not eligible, here's Jenkins, July, we would do two things. One, we would terminate them immediately or close without hiring if the information is correct. And you just click on close without hiring and you say, you want to close it? And you say yes, and they go away from this page. So you've done your due diligence. If the person says that, hey, this information is not correct, I was never convicted of the crime, there will be a challenge button here in blue that says challenge, and you just click that challenge button and print out the paper, have the applicant sign it, and get it to DPS. As I said, within 48 hours is best. Once you click the challenge button, it says challenge submitted on 12/16/2016 here in this case. Be aware that does not mean that the challenge was actually submitted. It just means that you got the paperwork and assumes you're going to submit it. So that's very important. You will know when the actual challenge was submitted to DPS because DPS will actually put that into the system and you'll get an email that says appeal started. Once you get the email that says appeal started, you know that the employee followed through and that DPS has started the appeal, or challenge is what we call it. With a challenge, once the challenge process is done, which is going to be 45 days when you take into account the time, the 10 days and the 30 days for the participant. So after 45 days, you will get a notice in the system that the appeal process has ended. And in the documents link for that person, you also saw that there was the letter there that says that the appeal process has ended. In that case, if the person remains not eligible, then you must terminate them immediately after that time frame has gone. Now, if the DPS reverses their finding and agrees that there was a mistake, and this becomes eligible, when you log back into the system, you will see that this is eligible and you'll have a hire button and you'll be able to hire them. For all undetermined employees, they all must challenge. So there will be a blue challenge button here. You must click it and have that paperwork completed and sent to DPS. I recommend within 48 hours to get their final determination. So all undetermineds must challenge. And for an eligible, you can go ahead and hire them. This page keeps up your roster, so you need to hire people. And if they're not eligible, they either need to challenge and they need to be terminated at the appropriate time frames. We do monitor the not eligible, and we will contact you to find out why they're not eligible if it looks like they need to be terminated. So please keep this page up to date. It helps you in many ways. It helps you prevent, getting calls from us. It also helps you track and make sure that the proper actions were taken for people. And this is how we know that you've taken the proper action. In the past, we used to send papers that you had to sign and return and all of that. We've eliminated all of that. Easier for you, but in order for it to work, we need you to actually do it. So you need to take action on your not eligibles and get those, make sure those are terminated at the appropriate times. So if they're not eligible and the information is correct, you terminate them immediately. So go ahead and keep that up to date. Also, with the eligible, when you hire them, it gets them onto your roster, which is also required. So please keep this up to date. So now you know what to do with an eligible, undetermined, and a not eligible. Now we're going to go through, well, I will mention that an undetermined can work while they are undergoing that challenge process. And an not eligible can also work while they're undergoing that challenge process. But there's some things to keep in mind. You know, everybody's do their due process. So during that challenge time, if you have a not eligible or an undetermined, you know, if you put them on temporary leave, but you don't terminate them, or you go ahead and have them work under direct supervision, at a minimum, you need to do a complete investigation, put measures in place that will keep the employee, patients or residents safe while they're under that corrective action period. You know, you're responsible for all of that. You know, if a caregiver is the only caregiver by themselves in a facility, well, then, you know, how do you keep that person safe? Probably needs direct supervision. So, things to keep mind of during that corrective action period. Okay, so now we've gone through all the different scenarios and how to find the determinations. Now I'm going to go over a little bit on how you can monitor and how this system is so helpful in helping you keep everything in place and automated tracking of when people need background checks and all of that information. So one of the important things is here under application forms. The civil applicant waiver form I've been talking to you about is located here. So I would go ahead, this is the first thing I would do when I log into the system, is I would go ahead and print a lot of copies of these. And anytime an employee comes in, they need to sign and date this form, and you need to put it in their personnel file before you even run them through NABS, before they go get fingerprinted. And so here's where they attest that they haven't been convicted of any crimes. And here is the authorization to consent to do the registry checks, including that child abuse registry check that we spoke of. So that's important. The challenge form, if for some reason you can't get the challenge form from that other page, the challenge form is here. So you go ahead and click the challenge form and have the applicant submit this, have the applicant fill this out and get this submitted to DPS, as I suggested. Within 48 hours would be best, but the law does allow you to inform the person of the results within that 10 days. And this is a great way to document that. So you can document that you met the regulatory requirement by having this form completed and keeping it in the personnel file. So if a surveyor asks, did they, you know, submit their challenge form with the challenge form submitted to DPS within those 10 days, you know, did you notify the individual? You can have a date here, you know. So this is a good documentation, and it must be completed by anybody that comes back as an undetermined and submitted to DPS. And with the not eligibles, like I said, it's only to be done if the information is not correct. So you can get the forms here, and then we will go back to the home page. The list of fingerprint agencies are here. Here's our email. You can send us our list of state holidays because we're closed those days, and frequently asked questions are here. Now that we went through all this, to monitor all of that, you can monitor it right from this front page. So I would suggest coming here frequently. Not yet submitted by provider. Those that are there never got to that green submission page. So you will not get any background check results on any of the people that are here. So I would highly recommend that you, anytime you see somebody here, you click on it, and then you review the name of the people you have here. And if you want to hire the person, you go, or you want to, you know, complete the background check process, you do resume, and just go next, and it takes you through the process. If you want to withdraw the person, then just go ahead and click on here and click on the withdraw button, and it just, you right here, I enter them an error, or, you know, duplicate entry, or whatever the reason is for withdrawing them, and then you withdraw them, and it gets off your list here. So that is very useful. Flag for review, we talked about that. If you want a supervisory review and they see a number here, they just click on it and finish the registry check and submit it. Eligibility determination and process. These are all the individuals who have not had a background check returned yet. And this part here is very, very useful in monitoring because you can see here where everybody is at with everything. So background check started just means that you actually got them submitted in NABS. You got to that final page with the fingerprint form that says submitted. That's all it means. It doesn't mean they've been fingerprinted. Once the fingerprint hits NABS, you will actually see it in here and it will say, you know, fingerprints taken or name-based check if it was a name-based one. So you can see the status here. Fingerprints taken the first time. Here's their TCN number. That means that they went and got fingerprinted, followed what you did, and it went through without a problem. So you're in good shape here. If their fingerprints get rejected, it will show up here as well, fingerprints rejected. And then you follow those procedures that we outlined earlier. So this is a great place for you to monitor where everybody is in their fingerprinting process. Now, if this is a new employee and you want to hire them provisionally, you click on hire provisionally and you go ahead and put in the hire date. You are allowed to have individuals work before their background check results come back from the Department of Public Safety. And so that is allowed, but it has to be a provisional hire. So you go ahead and put the provisional hire date here and you click on save. And then, oops. So, and then you hire them provisionally. And so you just go ahead and do that for your new employees. If this is an employee coming up for their 5-year check, you go ahead and click on here and you enter their hire date. It might be many years ago if this person was, you know, working for you for 5 years and now they're due for their 5 years, so it might be a date way in the past. But this is how you can record somebody who is a permanent employee. So you can see that the status when I hire provisionally changes to provisional employee, and that's how you know that you hired them provisionally. And when I put in their record pre-existing employment, it records them as a permanent employee because it means they're already working for you. You either pick hire provisionally or you hit record pre-employment existing. You never hit both. That will cause you a lot of problems. So new hires that you hire provisionally, you click here. Existing employees that are coming up for their 5-year to record their employment, previous employment date, you click hire date, you click here, and you do one or the other, never both. And if you want to withdraw the application, you withdraw it there. So great way to do monitoring of where your employees are. And this is a great way at your plants to do overall monitoring. So if you have anybody who has eligibility determination complete, you click on here and you go through the process if they're not eligible, undetermined, or eligible as appropriate. If they have a determination available and action needed over 10 days, please click on that. And like I said, it could just be an eligible that needs to be hired. Determination not eligible, currently employed. That's a problem. You know, why are these not eligibles currently employed? Are they in their challenge period? If they're not, why haven't they been terminated? Provisional status expiring. They can be in a provisional status for 60 days. So you want to go ahead and if anybody's showing up here, click on that and see what's holding them up. Employment verification is very important. Employment verification is what keeps your roster up to date, which is required by law. So when you get an email that says employment verification needed, you come here. If you see any numbers here with employment verification, you just click on it. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and verify our employees. And so if somebody's currently working for you, you just click on Employment Verify. It's very easy. If somebody has separated from you, you click on Edit and you change the status to separation. And then you put in their separated date and you click Save. And it takes them off the list. And this is how you keep your roster up to date. So these people are all still working for me. You can see it's pretty quick and easy. It needs to be done every 6 months. So if you get a verification email or you see the verification number on the at a glance page, you just go through this process. Okay, so this person I'm going to separate because they are no longer working for me. And then we have to put in their separation date here. Okay, and then the last person's working for me. I do verify selected, and that keeps my roster up to date. So it's very important to keep your roster up to date, and that's an easy way to do it. And when you see the verification emails come through, that's how it works. New background check needed, the system automatically tracks that for you. So if you see a number here, you just go ahead and click on it, and then add a new application and go through that normal process until you get to the page confirmation green submitted page. You get the fingerprint form, you give it to the employee, they go get background checked, and you just do the process again. So this is a great way to keep everything up to date. If you want to go directly to a page, you can go to see everybody not yet submitted here, everybody who needs flagged for review, determination of process, determination available. If you want to go find the challenge form or the civil applicant waiver form, you click here. These registry recheck areas, this is the area where your child abuse registry check will come back. And you'll notice a lot of registries here, but the only one this is really useful for is the OIG and the Child Abuse Registry. The OIG, because it has an auto match, if you click on the OIG and you search here, this is automatically going to keep everything up to date for you. So for example, if you had an employee, the original IOG was cleared, but they ended up getting on the OIG list, a year later, this will track this for you. So if you saw somebody and it said match found and it said yes here, that means that they were found on the OIG registry. So I would go back to OIG registry, search on that page, and I would just confirm that they're in the OIG registry, it matches this person. And so if you monitor this as often as your facility policy requires it, I know some facilities it's mandatory and some it's not. You can go ahead and use the yeses here to track everything for you automatically. For the child abuse registry, you would come back here. You'll get an email telling you that the result has returned. And so you get the email that says your child abuse registry results have returned. So then you would go to applications and you would go to the registry recheck log and you would do child abuse registry here. And then you click search and here they all come up. So if you see a yes here, that means the person was actually found with a substantiated finding in the child abuse registry. If there is a no here, that means that the person was not found in the child abuse registry, so they would be considered cleared. Now, if you want more information on the yes or the no, that's when you go to this registry recheck area. And in the registry recheck area, you can go view registry recheck. And here you can see that this person had a substantiated finding of neglect. Or if it was abuse, it would say found abuse. Now, to get the registry letter for the child abuse registry, it's located here under CAN letters. So you would just go under CAN letters. And then here is the letter, and it just gives you an explanation of if the person had a substantiated finding, it would be found abuse or found neglect, or if they're not in the registry at all, it's no record found. And the final result is down here. So this is the letter for your record. Okay, so determinations. you won't have this. This is my view. You won't have that. Employees, if you want to take a look at all your provisional employees, you click here. All your permanent employees, you click here. If you want your full roster, you click here. If you know somebody has separated from you, you can go to your verification and do another verification that way, or you can find the employee and look them up, and then search for them, and then go to edit here, and then you can change them to separated if they were leaving. So you have different options here on what you can do. Okay, just up here, these are your filter options. The filter options are different depending on a type of search, but it all works the same way. So for example, if you had somebody's last name, you can just click by last name. If you wanted to look them up by position, you can look them up by position. Anything that's here, you can do. So if I do search like this, it would pull up everybody with that last name. So the search engine here is very, very helpful. It's specific to what you're looking for. So it's a great tool to use. Also, if you want to find out, the hire dates or last name from, by the letter, A to Z or Z to A, or current to less current or backwards, you just click on hire date up here, and it just reorders this to the right order. And if you want to do the last name, you click last name. So that's just a little useful tool. The search engine is what you'll use when you're looking up for somebody. So let's say you said, oh my goodness, Letitia won. I forgot to get her fingerprint form. So you would have the person search here, and then you would have to enter their social security number. And their last name. And then you click on here, and then the person comes up, and here you can get all their application information, and you can get their employment information. You could go to documents, and here you get their clearance letter. So once they become eligible, their clearance letter is here. You can go ahead and print that and put that in their file. Their fingerprint form, everything is here. All their letters are here. So just go to search, find the person, and you will be able to easily find them. Application search, if you have their application number or their background check or OCA number, you can go ahead and put it in here and find somebody that way. So the application number and the background check OCA number, background check number and OCA number are the same thing. So when you go, let's see, I'll show you what that looks like. So when you go here to applications, you can get the OCA number or background check number here, and you can also get it on their fingerprint form in that area I showed you earlier. So that's where you can get both of those. Reports, there's a number of reports here, and you can use them or not use them if you feel that they're helpful. You just click on report, and then you just enter the parameter that you want. So if you want, let's say from November, whatever parameter you desire, to here, and you view report. And then here's a report. So the reports are up to you. Fingerprint locations, if you want fingerprint locations, you can click on here, or registry checks. The admin user accounts, this is where you manage all of your users. So anytime an individual is locked out, you can come and unlock them. Here are those search engines. So if anybody was locked and you hit locked and hit locked and search, they would all come up, and you can just unlock them. This is where you would disable any individual that is no longer working for you. You don't want them to have access to all of this personal information that you entered. So please disable all employees that are terminated from employment that you no longer have working for you. Now, I want to make a clarification because it might be confusing. So employee verification, where we went and talked about verification, that is all employees, regardless of whether they have access to NABS or not. And that's where you want to keep them all up to date for your roster purposes. This is completely different. This is the provider website administrator managing who has access to NABS and who doesn't. So if an employee who has access to NABS, it's one of your human resources background check people, no longer has access to NABS, you would use your verification, or you would find them up on a permanent employee and separate them from the purposes of an employee. Then you would come here and you would actually disable the person from the system. So I'll show you how that looks. So you would go in here and this person is already disabled. So that's not helpful. So, okay, so basically, the reason why they were all disabled was because when you hit disabled and you do search, it shows you all the disabled, or if you do lock, it shows you all the locked. So if you have the blank spot up here, it shows you everybody. So we're going to go and pretend that this person here no longer works for us. So all you would do is click disable and you click yes, and they can no longer access your system. If you want to add some notes or documents related to this person, you put them here. This is also how you add new users. So you go to admin user accounts and you will be able to add new users. You will be the owner, or whoever the owner designates as needing to be the website administrator. That will be the first person in here, is the website administrator. And that person now has the ability to add new people. If you want to search for people or by their status or anything, that way you do it through here. So to add a new user, so you have 3 people in your human resource department that actually work on background checks. You go ahead and add them here. And then these roles here, if you want this person to be a provider user administrator, that allows them to add new users, disable users, unlock users, and delete certain things that the other person can't. You click selected. And if you want them to be able to then grant this ability to other users, here. If you want them to have regular background check role, this data provider will allow them to do all their background check work and screen people, but it doesn't allow them to use users, and it doesn't allow them to change date of birth or delete certain functions. So this one has more power. So this user here can change date of birth and add new users, delete users, things like that. So if you want them to have both, you can select both, because what this does is allows you to check grantable, and then it allows this person to grant this type of role to other people. Then you need to go ahead and you need to find your facility and for this user. So if you have multiple facilities that you work with and you want them to have access to all of them, you click all of them. In this case, I only have one, so I add this one and I click save. And then you just click save like this. And then what happens is they will get, this means that they will get an email with their temporary password, but you need to provide the username because the username is not part of that. Okay, so we've gone through all of the screens up here. The last thing I want to go over is there's a lot of information here. You can revert to the frequently asked questions for assistance, or you can go to our quick startup guide, which goes through step by step all of the things, not all of the things, but it goes through step by step adding a new user, and it provides explanations, making sure you have the waiver form filled out, you know, add new. So you can see it takes you step by step through this to get you started. So if you need help because you forgot how to use the system, just go to help and then go to the quick startup guide, and it'll help you get somebody added to NABS. And then we have separate documents here for all the different things, getting started, enabling, disabling users with screenshots that will help you. My account right here is how you can change your password, how you can change your security questions, notifications. I highly recommend you keep them all at receive because you get a lot of emails from the system that really keeps you up to date. You know, if somebody had their background check, results come back, it lets you know. If somebody started a challenge on somebody, you'll get the appeal started email. Once the appeal process ends, you'll get the appeal process ending email, and that's your clue to go into the system to see if the status has changed. So, for example, if they were not eligible, you would terminate them immediately after this email if nothing's changed, or if they were eligible, you would be able to see that. If the fingerprints are rejected, you get the fingerprint email with instructions to follow, and you need to print that email and send it with the required paperwork to DPS per those instructions we went over earlier. So I highly recommend that you just leave those as receive. And we'll go back to the home page. And so that's basically how you use NABS. I hope you found these instructions helpful, and take care. Bye-bye.